Hi everyone, my name is TRH and welcome back to my channel. I'll be reading you a short story called I Fell Into a Stalker's Trap. This was back around 2004 when online dating wasn't as prevalent as it is now. I had met and gone on a few dates with local guys, but nothing came of it. One evening I was searching and I happened upon someone who was my age and had almost identical taste in music and hobbies and interests as me. I messaged him and we started chatting. He seemed interesting enough, so we agreed to meet up for coffee downtown. I didn't notice anything off-putting as we ordered our coffee and hung out for a little while. We talked about mundane things, and I found out that he was a medical student at a local university. He seemed like a normal guy until after we finished our coffee, and he wanted to go for a walk around the city. It was around this time that I had noticed his demeanor started to change. He seemed to grow tense, and he got this gleam in his eye, and he kept rubbing his hands over his thighs as if to dry off sweaty palms. He got very quiet. I started to get nervous. I noticed that in our strolling, he was leading me further and further away from the populated downtown area. My attempts to continue this conversation were met with half responses and mumbles from this now heavy breathing, increasingly weird acting guy. I suggested that we needed to go back toward downtown, and I turned and started to go back the other direction, and he reached out and grabbed my arm. "No, wait," he half breathes, half mumbles. "We need to sit down. There's something important I need to tell you." Alarm bells were going off in my head like crazy. I knew I had to get away from this guy, but by the point we were far enough away from the downtown crowd that there would be no one to come to my immediate aid. I numbly allowed him to guide us over to a bench and sit down. He still held fast to my arm. He turned and stared at me in a way I can only describe as a predator eyeing prey, and he menacingly proudly disclosed that he had been watching me for a very, very long time. He began to rattle off all this information he had been gathering about me. He knew which bars my friends and I hung out at, and liked to listen to me laugh and talk with others, that he would just hang around in the crowd and watch me. He knew where I lived. He knew where I worked, when I worked. He knew where I went to school, when I had classes. He said he'd been following me for quite some time, and then he said when he found me on the dating site, he specifically tailored his profile to mirror mine so that he could finally get me. Still clutching my arm, he slid his other hand to squeeze my thigh, and now that he had me, he was never going to let me go. The whole time the guy was rambling, and I was acting non-compliant and nodding like this none of it was a big deal. While inside I was freaking out. I suddenly had pulled out my phone and was texting guy friends that I was in danger and needed immediate help. One of them responded that he was in my area and he raced over to where I was. My heart was pounding out of my chest as I saw my guy friend's truck come down the street. I waited until he was close enough to me to reach, and I ripped myself away from the grip of the creepy guy beside me and started to run. The creepy guy became close to me. He began to chase me, screaming obscenities. I could feel him getting on me as I threw myself into the bed of my guy friend's truck as he sped away. The creepy guy still on the sidewalk, shouting and swearing. This was the last time I fooled with online dating. I have no idea what this creepy guy was intending, but I've never been more terrified in my life.